Thank you for tuning in to Koppen with Comic. I'm Brian Koppen, and we're here with comic Maria DeCotis. Maria DeCotis, how the hell are you?
Hi, I'm great. How are you?
Oh, good. Thank you so much for coming. And then real quick, if people want to see you do stand-up comedy in New York City, where can they find you? And then where can they find you online?
I'm performing regularly around the city. I have a JFL showcase coming up on the 29th, which is very
That's
exciting.
a big deal. Have you done one of those before?
I have not. It's my first one, so I'm very
That means
excited.
you're going to get it, right?
I mean, I hope. We'll see. And and they can follow me online. I'm usually on Instagram. It's just at Maria DeCotis, my name.
Oh, good.
So no one has my name, thankfully.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and nobody as funny will have your name. And then, so just for last showcase means it's like you're ready to take the next step. There's other great stand-ups who are going to be there. And if you nail it, you will go to Montreal.
So there's a first showcase, and then if you nail that one, you can get a second showcase. Okay. And then if you nail that one, you go to Montreal.
Oh, my Lord, no pressure. I just remember that was immortalized in the whole comedian thing with Orny Adams trying to get Montreal, and he was just so obnoxious. I mean...
There's a whole documentary about him.
Oh, yeah, but also, I read, what the hell is her name? The whole... She's kind of weird. Rosebud Baker. Yeah. She made it in New York City. Yeah, the whole... What's it called? It was on Amazon.
It's on Amazon.
Yeah. We're just wasting time here. But it's a great thing. If you're interested in comedy, you should look at the whole Just for Laughs documentary on Amazon. But it says Maria DeCotis on all the platforms. And are you mariadecotis.com as well?
I am, yeah.
Okay. And then what kind of comedy have you been doing? I think there was actually a friend of mine who brought you to my attention because he was an Instagram follower. And he kept talking about you like he knew you. And then I found out weeks later, no, I'm just a follower, dude. I like her stuff. And so you're doing characters and stuff like that on Instagram?
Oh, that's interesting. So I do like online content. I'll do characters and stuff. I have one character that's this woman who calls a Con Edison worker every day to maintain this delusion that they're in a romantic relationship.
Oh, I love that.
And then I just do like one-off impressions and stuff like that. So.
And we just had an impressionist on here, and so what impressionist are you doing? Like we just had Bonnie Q. Harris on here, and she did a whole host of them. Who are your successful ones, and how are you working? Like, how do you get them into a stand-up act? Do you just kind of throw them in?
To be honest, I have not done any impressions in my stand-up. It's like a whole separate thing. Okay. I think I create...
Oh, you do it online, but not in your act.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I learned a swath of impressions for an SNL audition.
Oh, cool. Did you audition?
I made a video.
Okay.
But I did not get a showcase.
So that's what you do. You kind of send in a video, and then if you get it, then you just stand up here, and it's notoriously silent as you're freaking out.
Yeah, I think that's what happened.
Okay.
But so I was just making videos of these. I've done like a few of them live. Like I do Natasha Lyonne and Michelle Wolf that I've done live a few times.
Michelle Wolf has a unique voice.
She definitely does.
Yeah, like I when she was doing all the political, I think she was doing political comedic reportage, if that's a thing. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I'm not into this whole thing, so I never watched it because I didn't even watch the Jon Stewart thing. But then her special that recently came out on Netflix was solid as hell.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
she's fucking
great.
funny.
I'm
right?
such a fan.
Yeah, just a unique voice though too. Wow. She still makes it work, but man, it's unique.
It sure is. Yeah. She references it a lot too.
Yeah, so. The fact I can make it worse, I can make it more shrill. And so you do those impressions. And what's a Michelle Wolf impression video look like for Maria DeCotis?
Like you want me to do the impression?
You can, but just kind of how do you clip it? How do you organize it into a short video that's rapidly shareable online?
Yeah. Well, I give her like a context, Okay, so I was doing this series for Natasha Lyonne that was called Fucking Tea Time with Natasha Lyonne, and she was just kind of like being this badass bitch. She's like trying to have a women's talk show, but she can't help being like this badass bitch.
Yeah.
And so I had Michelle Wolf on as a guest.
Oh, cool.
And then I had her like guest host one time to talk about like lingerie, and like what she would wear for lingerie.
Yeah, what do badass bitches wear for lingerie?
Yeah, so Michelle Wolf was, okay, I'm trying to think of what she says. She's like, first, I start off with a nice pair of men's slacks. No belt loops, front pleats. I'm not a scrub.
So that's lingerie, though?
Yeah.
That's what a badass bitch wears for. Oh, I love that. I love that.
And she's like, and I know what you're thinking. What's underneath all that menswear? None of your fucking business, bitch.
I love that. And so, I mean, and because that, if you described it like that online, I would fire it up, and that's what I would expect. Like a badass bitch will wear, when you say
Whatever
fucking
the
front,
fuck she
yeah,
wants.
and then what's under that? You would think nothing. No, whatever the fuck I want, bitch. I love that. And so do you find that you pick impressions based on kind of where your voice is at anyway? Like you might not be able to, like there might be a repertoire of characters that have, a higher voice, and can you also do, people with lower voices?
Yeah, I'd say I have a pretty big range with that. Like obviously my voice is so different than Michelle Wolf's, but I think I choose impressions based on who I sort of look like, because a lot of people would tell me that I look like Michelle Wolf or Natasha Lyonne.
Yeah, and Natasha Lyonne has what, red and curly hair or something like that. Your hair is curlier, right?
So, or just like people that I'm fans of. Like I love Melissa Villaseñor and like Ariana Grande. Just I'm like I like them and I want to do them.
Yeah, I think Bonnie Q just did those too. It's like I've never even heard Ariana Grande talk. I try to avoid. I mean, I try to avoid what the popular people like. Even like, here AOC, what is it, or Ocasio-Cortez. Like, I read everything about her, and it's just like I don't like hearing these people talk ever. Like, you can't put your voice into my ear without my consent. But also like, so I've never heard Ariana Grande talk. So it's just so funny that I can hear it through impressions before I ever hear that woman talk.
Yeah, that's so weird. You should just listen to her talk, because otherwise it doesn't make any sense.
Is it like small and mousy? How does she talk?
It's just so like it's like breathy and like nasally.
Oh, okay.
She sounds like a baby.
Okay, well, I feel like I can already summon it up. And so, yeah. And I guess one of the things that I guess your impression has to be funny. Like if you were to bring it on stage, your impression has to be funny regardless of whether or not people know that person. Like Bonnie Q, she has an impression show with her mother, who's also a comedian, and her mother's doing the older school impressions, and she's doing the younger, the younger thing. And I'm like, but something can be funny. Like Katharine Hepburn, I've never heard her talk, but if it's funny enough and if the content is funny, I will still laugh. And so how would you be sure to bring somebody on stage that everybody knows? And would it just have to be a funny voice on its own with funny content?
Yeah, I would say like if people don't know who the person is, you just have to write great content. Like write something that's specific to their voice. Like when I was writing that Michelle Wolf thing, I was like, she would totally do something like that. Yeah. And even if you don't know who that person is, it can still be funny because you can reveal their character through that content.
Yeah. And so what are some of the other things you're doing? Like the character's so funny with the comment thing. What are some other kind of regular, recurring characters people can look forward to on your Instagram account?
I guess I'm trying to think of other recurring. I feel like I just do one-off weird characters. Like cool. I have this Italian character that I do. Her name's Martina Cucchiaino, and she's just like trapped in this like tumultuous relationship with her boyfriend. So she's just like talking about all the time how
I love that.
Like, he told me I was emotional after threatening to throw himself off the Brooklyn Bridge if I didn't promise to marry him.
I love that.
Anyway, now we have twins.
But that could be on stage, right? So that's a character, not an impression. So are you bringing that on stage?
It depends. Like sometimes I'm not really doing a lot of live character work. I'm doing more stand-up.
Okay.
But I feel like I create completely different content for my stand-up than I do for characters.
And why is that?
It's just a different skill, I guess. Like for stand-up, I view it as exploring me as a character and what I believe and what I want other people to see and have a different perspective on from my point of view.
And what are those kind of uniquely Maria DeCotis perspectives?
Yeah, I talk about like being a woman a lot.
Oh yeah, and that's what we're talking about today, ostensibly, right? Yeah.
And and I guess I talk a lot about like power dynamics and inequalities between men and women, and I talk about like a big thing, in stand-up is how people perceive you. Like a lot of comedians come on stage and they immediately point out something physical about themselves. It's the first thing you're gonna notice.
Yeah. It's hacky. It's hacky.
Yeah, it's
Avoid
a little hacky. But I think for me, it's really important to express what it's like to be sort of this small, like, woman with curly hair and big eyes, and people don't really expect much from me, or they don't really give out their respect to me so easily right away or at all.
Unless you make them laugh.
Right.
Until you make them laugh, right?
Exactly, until you make them laugh. And I just want to reveal the breadth of thoughts and feelings and ideals that I have inside of me that someone just looking at me wouldn't think that I have, or wouldn't even think those thoughts cross my mind, because I'm like this small, cute thing in their
And so,
mind.
yeah, so what do you think people see when they see you, just in one or two words? But then also, how is that kind of unique insight and unique ideal and the way you look at the world just so diametrically opposed to how people would think you think?
Yeah.
Like, I just think you're
That's
just,
a loaded question.
Oh yeah, compound question. Answer whichever part you want. But just like I'm looking at you, and I'm just like, okay, well, here's this, this pretty person. She's probably actively dating, and she doesn't have any deep thoughts at all. And you're like, hell no, X, Y, and Z. I think this about the world, and I really need you to know that.
Yeah. Well, one thing that I'm really vocal about on my social media is mental health and
Oh, cool.
mental illness, because I do have a mental illness. I have depression,
Okay.
as many comedians do.
Yeah.
And I think for most of my life, I've been sort of like a happy, cheery girl, like outside around other people, but I have had like a deep darkness well inside of me for most of that time too. And one thing that I hate about Instagram and social media now is that it makes people really sad. Like, everyone I talk to is like, this makes me miserable, but yet I'm on it 5 hours a day or however long. And unfortunately, it's a big part of your job as a comedian to do social media and like represent your craft and build an audience and all of that and your brand or whatever.
That just sucks your chain to the very thing that's making you miserable. And so I guess the couple questions I have are, first of all, how do you make that dark well of despair funny on stage? But then how do you make sure that you can continue to put forth the minimum necessary efforts towards Instagram while remaining detached enough not to get depressed by it?
Yeah, those are great questions.
Yeah, there's a couple questions. Pick which one you want to answer.
I think the best way to talk about mental illness on stage is, like, I think it's hilarious how much I feel on a day-to-day basis.
Oh, I love that.
I think it's so... I just think it's ridiculous. Like, I wrote this, like, song, this comedic song about... It's called I'm Emotionally Unreasonable.
Oh, cool.
And it's, like, just all about, like, my day-to-day, like... emotional like highs and lows and just how insane they are and what like small thing can make me like sob. And
I love that.
It's so stupid. It's like insane. I'm like, why do I have to feel this much?
Yeah, while I'm sweeping the floor. And do you bring that song on stage?
I do, yeah. So
okay.
I do perform like some songs sometimes.
Is it just you singing acapellically? Acapella? Is it you singing acapella, or do you also bring out a guitar or something?
So my friend plays the piano, so she like made me a track.
Oh, cool.
So I play the track.
You played a backing tracks?
Yeah.
I love that. And then, and so it's about kind of, I'm feeling this thing and I'm doing this mundane thing, and then I'm feeling the opposite thing and I'm doing this, and why do I have to feel so much?
Yeah, exactly. It's like...
I love that. I would love to hear you. Yeah, I would love to hear. I mean, it's so it sucks for you, but it's so interesting from a spectator to hear. And if you can't be funny, be interesting. Of course, you want to be both. But like even so, even if you're ever bombing, resort to something interesting, because then you'll get us back with how interesting that is. That while you are cleaning the bathroom, you're also just fucking going nuts about this thing. And why do I have anxiety while I'm cleaning the floor?
Right.
I mean, that would just be so interesting to know that somebody who's a parent, seems to be cheery and whatnot, is going through this thing. Especially if you are just comedic and you're very funny. Like that other joke you had was just fucking hilarious. I love it.
Oh,
with the whole Michelle Wolf thing, I was like, how can you make that bitch funny? Oh yeah, you just did. But just like if you're funny enough, I would think that I'd be very interested to hear some of the thoughts that are going through your head, and just the fact that you hate the fact that you can't tune those thoughts out even for a couple seconds.
Yeah, like I say all the time that I wish I could just have like a neutral feeling at any moment during the day, but I really can't.
Or no feeling at all. Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah, and it's just it's not in the cards for me.
Yeah.
And I think this ties in with social media too, is I think a big part of what makes people sad about social media is that they look at other people's lives and they're like, they're so happy, they're so successful. Like, their life is so much better than mine. But for me, I post pictures of myself crying all the time, like on my stories.
Good.
And I've had so many people, and I'm just like, listen, Instagram isn't real. If you look at my Instagram and you think that I'm happy all the time and that my life is perfect, don't think that, because that's not true. And
Good.
I get so many messages from people who are like, thank you for posting this. Like, have depression. It's really hard. And it's hard to look at other people's social media. So I just don't want anyone to look at my social media and ever feel sad or bad about themselves. Like, I want my platform to be a place for people to, number one, laugh.
Right.
Number two, to not feel alone.
And I think maybe that's why my friend, he described you like he thought like I was like, well, who's this Maria chick? I have no idea. and then when I found out he was just a follower, he never met you, and I was just like, holy shit. And now I know maybe why he actually gives a shit, because you're kind of letting your guard down a little bit and saying, I'm not just this cheerful person who's seemingly perfect. I also just have too many thoughts in my head all fucking day long, and a lot of them are awful. And so is there any way that you can, bringing your characters and your impressions on stage, and also, things to your Instagram account, like, how do you make sure that however they consume your work, it has all those elements, has the character, has the impression, has the music, but also has the kind of letting my guard down?
Yeah.
Because you should. Because I might not consume you on Instagram, but if I see you in person, I should kind of get the range of who Maria DeCotis is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because you seem to see them as distinct, but really it's like if you have these comedic assets, or even these, as a public figure, you have these assets, even your personal story, and it would probably behoove you to marshal all your assets in every single platform you're doing. So, like, how can you,
true.
are you always going to see them as distinct, or is there something about one or the other that you feel uncomfortable doing an impression on stage, or you're uncomfortable talking? Do you talk about depression on stage too? And I guess you do it via song.
Yeah, so I have it in song. I have a little bit like in stand-up, but I know what you're saying. Like, these things are all connected, and I think the way that a big way that they all come together is all like exercising those different skills of writing characters, performing characters, filming them, editing them, writing songs, performing songs, doing stand-up. All of that influences me as a writer and a performer, and it's all helping me grow in the same direction. I don't know. I feel like stand-up was a very big platform for me to come into my own power, and it's been very healing for me. And I think what I love about stand-up is being myself.
Okay.
And
that's why you don't want to bring in a celebrity impression, because it's like that has nothing to do with my growth and my journey, right?
Yeah, like I feel like the more I am my authentic self and transparent authentic self on stage, because you're actually in a room with people, and I think people resonate a lot more with that than me just like doing an impression of someone else. Good. Where I'm like, I really want to be myself here, and I really feel like the most powerful when I am myself and talking and speaking as myself.
Good.
Whereas online, it's like you have to think about like the algorithm and the logistics of what is popular online. Right. Like, what do people like to see online? People love to see impressions because it's like a quick video you can watch. You can immediately hear the voice and be like, oh my God, that voice is just like Ariana's or whatever. People like to see big characters with like interesting like costumes and outfits and voices. It's like more of a way to like draw people in on different mediums, I guess.
Because then they'll be more likely to come to your stand-up show and see your authentic self on stage.
Yes.
And I think
and see something different even, because what are they going to watch my videos on my Instagram and then come see me do that live? Yeah, I want them to see something like another part of myself,
Yeah, I love to. And so as long as you are keeping your authentic self, who has some depression, as long as you're keeping that on stage, and because really though, all that matters is comedy is your thing. That's what I love so much. You can choose what the fuck. It's like, well, thank you, Brian, for telling me I should marshal all my assets into in person. You're mansplaining right now. But also, it's like, I'm glad though that comedy is its own thing. But I am grateful that you made the choice that you are going to include some of the stuff on stage where you're letting your guard down. And I guess you already do that through song. But it's also just so cool you're doing it online because, if we look at pictures of you, we just think that this person has it all. And you do, but you have it all and the stuff that's less than fun too.
Right. Yeah. I don't want people to think it's one or the other.
Right. Yeah.
There's
So
a
everybody,
lot of suffering there.
yeah, everybody has both.
Yes.
And it kind of makes up who you are. So thank you so much. And Maria DeCotis, we can see you next on stage where? We will go to mariadecotis.com to see your upcoming show dates.
Actually, go to my Instagram to see my upcoming show dates.
Okay, so it's Maria. Is it Maria DeCotis? Is it at Maria DeCotis? And it's DeCotis.
Yep, perfect.
See, I know that because my friend knows you, even though he never met you. So keep pumping it out to your followers because they all just love you so much.
Aw, so sweet.
So thank you so much, Maria.
Thank you.